And coming up on the wrap, we have a verdict in the Boston bombing trial. A white police officer shoots a black man in South Carolina. Was it murder? White House computers were hacked. Now authorities believe the Russians were behind it. We'll discuss all of that, plus yay or nay and potluck. This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And joining me on the wrap tonight, as usual, SiriusXM radio host, Forbes columnist, and Nancy Reagan's former White House astrologer. Really, is that true?
Do you know, you're going to laugh, but I actually knew her White House astrologer.
Really?
Yeah, I was his lawyer.
Wow. We have our own astrologer.
I was warm on our Lie of the Night co-host, Rick Unger. Also, she is the yin to Rick's yang. Heather Hansen is
That's
here
right,
in
we're the
yellow.
yin yang.
And finally, she is the co-host of Close Encounter. Lisa Janovitz is back. Let's get right to the Daily Download.
Not a happy occasion, but it's something that we can put, one more step behind us. We want to thank the prosecution, all of their team, the FBI agents, all of the people at the AG's office, and all of you who've been out here and supported us and have been so thoughtful and kind throughout this entire thing. It's been difficult, but we've gotten through it with each other. We're a new community of just our little family here, and we're grateful for everything that you all have done.
And that was Boston Marathon bombing survivor Karen Broussard at a press conference this afternoon following the announcement that a verdict was finally reached in the Boston Marathon bombing trial. Bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev found guilty on all 30 counts against him. When presenting their case, the prosecution showed jurors graphic videos featuring victims of the bombing. A Tsarnaev defense attorney, Judy Clark, blamed her client's 26-year-old brother, Tamerlan Tsarnaev, for her client's actions. According to Clark, Tsarnaev was only following his older brother. All right, Heather Hansen, pretty easy to prove that Tsarnaev was guilty, but explain this to me. There is no death penalty in Massachusetts. There are federal charges, however, so what wins out here?
Well, the courts could have chosen, the prosecutor could have chosen not to pursue the death penalty because it was in Massachusetts. They chose to pursue the death penalty because it's in federal court, they can do so. It's very unusual. Even as of today, a lot of the radio stations and papers in Boston have taken polls and found out that the majority of people who have watched all of the evidence in this case still would not give the death penalty here. Of course, that doesn't matter if the jury ultimately does. But there's a lot of evidence that we're going to hear in the next stage that will impact whether or not the death penalty is given. Things that we don't know about this family, about the way that this defendant was raised, that could impact at least one juror and save his life.
Are you surprised that, Rick, the way this was handled by the defense attorneys by saying, well, his older brother made him do it. I have an older brother.
No,
I don't do anything that he tells me.
I think, first of all, bear in mind that this attorney is probably the best that there is when it comes to trying to survive a death penalty. So no, I think she's probably set it up just right. What's interesting about this is you're in a city, Boston, liberal, Catholic, Irish. These are not people who favor the death penalty by and large. However, you do have to keep in mind the jury itself was death panel qualified, meaning that each of them was asked the question, is there any religious, moral, or other reason why you would not be able to administer the death penalty should that be what's required? Everybody on that jury said, no, I can do it. So it's going to be, as Heather put it, it's going to be fascinating.
What happens here?
It's a whole new trial. You'll hear openings again. You'll hear testimony. The prosecution will put forward testimony and evidence about aggravating factors. So the fact that he put the backpack down next to a child. You'll hear victim statements. But then you're going to hear from the family, perhaps, and different evidence and witnesses on behalf of the defendant to set forth mitigating factors. And we don't know what they are. We don't know whether he will be called. There's a whole lot that we have yet to learn about what happened here that we'll learn soon.
Do you think there's any likelihood that he will testify to plead for his life?
It is, I think it's unlikely. But, the thing that's interesting is Judy Clark, Rick pointed out what an amazing attorney she is. She represented the Unabomber. And she wanted to plead insanity. He didn't want to. They got in a big fight about it. Rather than do so, he pled guilty so that he wouldn't have to use the insanity defense. Here, we don't know. The defendant in this case could very well want to say
Exactly.
death to America.
Consider his
He
religion.
might think
He
that
may
he's a
want
martyr.
to die. Right.
So if that's the case, then certainly she's not going to put him on. We'll learn a lot more once we get started with the mitigation phase. But this is the phase where you just wish there were TVs in the courtroom, because it is going to be fascinating stuff.
Why aren't there TVs in the courtroom?
Massachusetts federal courts don't allow it. Massachusetts doesn't allow it for the most part.
Oh, wow. Yeah, cable news certainly isn't very happy about that at all.
No, and in the public, I mean, it's a whole different issue. I have a problem with that, because the public deserves to see this. We saw Jodi Arias. We deserve to see this trial.
Absolutely. Well, joining us now is former Navy SEAL and former FBI Special Agent Jonathan Gilliam. Jonathan, will this type of verdict help deter future attacks?
I mean, it could deter people who are, I would say, on the lower end of the threat basis, people who are mad at the government, possibly. But the reality is, with people like that swear allegiance to ISIS, or people that just have it in to do some type of terroristic or destructive behavior, I don't think court cases really have a big sway on those types of people's opinions, honestly.
Jonathan, do you think that terrorists should be allowed to have Miranda rights?
No, and I'll tell you why. Because I believe we're in a war, and I believe that those people are combatants of a war. They just happen to be an operative that's over here. And when you swear allegiance to an ideology, it's no different than you swear an allegiance to, the German, Hitler movement back in World War II. It's
Jonathan, how do you know it's a terrorist until he's arrested and tried? Of course he has to have his Miranda rights. That's the law in the United States. He's not a terrorist until today, when he was convicted of it. He was a suspected terrorist.
Well, I think again, this is a slippery slope, but that's the effective part of terrorism. We have to start looking at the potential people who are committing these things, and we really need to rethink this Miranda issue. I know this is it's been in the court system, and Miranda is a standing law, but the fact is, we're in a war now for the first time in our history since the Revolutionary War, where we literally have operational experts or combatants that swear allegiance to another country or another ideology coming here, basically a foreign enemy coming to fight here. And my worry with the Miranda is that every time we have one of these attacks and we collect this information, it really helps us prepare for the next one. And if we Mirandize them, we're going to lose a lot of the information that we could have gotten.
And we'll have to end it there. Jonathan Gilliam, thanks so much for joining us from New York. We appreciate it.
Got it.
And coming up next, a white police officer shoots and kills an unarmed black man. It's all caught on video. Was it justified? This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax.